Hello guys, so in this video we'll be looking at the NPV breakeven, and in the previous video we looked at the accounting breakeven. The big drawback of the accounting breakeven is even when you sell like 186 planes, even when Airbus sells this, it still does not make a profit for its shareholders and for its owners, right? So accounting breakeven does not break even on an NPV basis. So because it ignores the opportunity cost of capital. So when we talk about NPV break-even, it does not ignore that opportunity cost of capital, and you're trying to find out the level of sales, and this we represent sales by the variable X again. So we're trying to find out the level of sales which would give the shareholders their return. So in terms of an accounting break-even, if a firm breaks even on an accounting basis, it does not earn the opportunity cost of capital. So that means you could have taken the money and invested it in some other stock or some other kind of financial instrument and earned some sort of return. When a firm breaks even on an NPV break even, the shareholders get the return they're expecting, right? If anything under the NPV break even would be considered like earning less than the opportunity cost of capital. And anything over the NPV break-even, any NPV positive NPV would be like adding value to the firm, more value than what the shareholders expect. So having said that, so for the NPV break-even, it's the same kind of assumptions. It's the same problem. So sales are X and variable costs remain 55% of sales. Fixed costs are $4.5 billion. The depreciation is $100 million. So when you talk about the depreciation as $100 million every year, and it's a 10-year lifespan, so the initial investment is going to be $1 billion. This $1 billion straight line depreciation over 10 years gives you the depreciation of $100 million per year. Okay, and the plane kind of sells for a retail price of $55 million per plane. And we need to have a tax rate, and we need to also define the opportunity cost of capital. Okay, so we're going to try and put these at like tax rate is 20%. And the opportunity cost of capital at 10%. Okay, so these are going to be our assumptions. And so when we talk about NPV breaking even, so this is the formula for the NPV over here, which you have. And so you need to break even on an NPV basis. That means this whole thing, this whole big formula should be equivalent to 0. Right? So this means, so now we're going to try and add another assumption to simplify the problem for us. So we're going to assume the cash flow is going to be the same every year. Without this, there'll be 10 variables to solve for, so it'll be very, very difficult. And so it's a lot easier to solve for just one variable in some sense. So the cash flow from operations is going to be the sales in X, like sale minus 0.55X. Going through the same thing, minus 4,500 minus $100 million. So this part over here is the earnings before taxes. And but after earnings before taxes, like after you need to subtract out the taxes, which is the 0.2, the 20% tax rate over here, and you subtract out the taxes. So this part over here is the taxes part. And this whole thing together is your net income. Right? So earnings before taxes minus subtract taxes, and that is your net income. And for your cash flow from operations, you add back the depreciation. Okay. So once you actually solve, like reduce this equation, this boils down to 0.8 into X minus 0.55X minus 4,600 plus 100, and that boils down to this final cash flow from operations. Okay, so this is a little similar to your previous thing. The accounting break even, you had your equation was something like this, and it was straightforward to solve. But now this is your cash flow from operations for one particular year. But the same cash flow occurs 10 times in a row for 10 years. And since you have that, the present value of all the cash flows is going to be the cash flow from operations into this whole factor. And this whole formula in the bracket is your 10-year annuity factor. Remember from chapter 8, we used the annuity factor to try and calculate the effective annual cost, or the equivalent annual cost. So this annuity factor, to be more specific, is a 10-year annuity factor, since it's a 10-year project, at our discount rate of 10%. Okay, so when you try and find that out, the 10-year annuity factor at the discount rate of 1%, how do you find that out? Well, you could go to the financial calculator. It's a value of $1 for 10 years at an interest rate of 10% with a future value of 0. And you find out the present value of that, and the annuity factor is 6.14, which is what we'll be using. So 6.14, the present value of the cash flows is 6.14 into the cash flow from operations. And once you multiply that, this is your present value of cash flows. And in order for NPV to be equivalent to 0, C0 should be equivalent to the present value of cash flows. If C0 is equivalent to present value of cash flows, this implies that NPV is equal to 0. Okay. So now what is C0? Well, our initial investment was written as 1 billion. Since we're writing everything as millions, so 1,000 million should be equivalent to, this is your C0, right? This is your initial investment, C0, and that should be equivalent to the present value of cash flows. And now you solve for X. So X is going to be 22,981.2 divided by 2.21. Let's find that out. Okay, so you need to sell 10,398.73. Okay, so that is your level of sales which you need to achieve in a particular year, and this would mean that you need to get plus X, like, so the retail price is 55 million per plane. So this gives you the number of planes to sell. It's going to be 10398.73 divided by 55. So this is 189.067. Okay, so roughly around 189 planes, let's say. So selling 189 planes would break even on an NPV basis. Okay, that would return the shareholders their money. Whereas in the accounting, I believe we achieved 186 was the number. The accounting break even. Yes, 186 was the number on the accounting break even. But here we're getting 189. And remember, the NPV break even number is always greater than the accounting break even number. It should be greater than or equal to. Okay, and that is NPV break even. And try and work out more problems similar, because you need to get used to these steps. All right, bye bye.